Yo guys, it's JJ here, and today I'm going to be breaking down how Southside makes some nice dark beats just for the likes of Future. But before we get into the video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Just past 1.7k subs, on the way to 2k, and all the love has been going crazy. So down below in my Instagram and in the link, I've got a bunch of free drum kits where you can grab all my old ones and the new ones all for free. So with all that being said, let's just jump straight into the video. First thing to note, we are doing this at 158 BPM in a scale of G minor, and that scale does change later on, but the main sound we are using is a sound from the Mini V plugin, which is just like a nice little like Moog synth, but in a VST, and we're using the super dope Pluck sound called Mist. And looking at the pattern, it's pretty straightforward. It's essentially this nice little 2-bar which repeats, which uses the G, E sharp going into a nice little A sharp, down into another D, and as you can see we go back into this G here. But the reason I'm highlighting all these notes alongside this 2-bar is because all these notes are part of the scale where it would draw one semitone apart, therefore giving it a nice dark vibe, and that's how we get that sound to Future. But then what I actually did with this sound was I went into my playlist, I right clicked it, clicked quick render as audio clip, and then what I was left with was this nice little audio clip. But then what I did was I double clicked it, went onto the pitch right here, took it down a whole last octave just so it could sound nice and dark, then turned bleeding onto generic as you can see so there's no popping sounds, and then reversed it, and I used the time knob as you can see here just to stretch it all the way down by half. And then last thing I actually did was I copy and pasted the same pattern, but then what I did was I left it back at its original pitch, so it's an octave lower and an octave higher for a bit of variation. So if I delete this and leave these two sounds in, this is what the main melody sounds like. As for the effects, the first thing I did was use an instance of backmask. This is a free plugin, go grab it, it's super dope, just reverses the sound here and there. Then I used some fruity chorus just to add another voicing to it. Then I got myself an instance of EQ, cutting off all my lows and ducking some highs to make it sound a bit more dark and ambient. Then I used some Portal with the stutter effects preset just because I want to add some granular like background textures. And then of course some RC20 with the noise off just to make it sound a bit more vintage and retro. And last but not least some Valhalla vintage verb just to add a bit of ambience to the whole sound. And looking at the stereo separation, I did this in 56%, really widening over the headphones, making it a nice spacious like dark sound for Future. And now the next thing I did was go into Analog Lab 5, grab myself the Source preset, which is a very nice dark bass from the Artillery Bank by Easy A and Max Shooter. And looking at the pattern, straightforward, following my root note every 2-bar and leaving this empty bit of space just to create some tension. So this is what the bass sounds like. And next up we got ourselves a bell sound from my kit. It's a typical bell we all know and love. It's a nice little tubular bell, and as you can see, have it playing for 4 bars at a lower octave and another 4 bars at a higher octave just to match the kind of octave change within the melody. And that's pretty much it. So this is what the bell sounds like. As for the effects on the bell, kept it pretty simple and straightforward, got an EQ and cut off all my lows, and that was literally it. And next up I got myself an instance of the Modular V3 with a preset called the Megalography, whatever you want to call it. It's a nice little Pluck sound, and as you can see I did the same thing as I did with my previous patterns where I played it at 1 octave and then took it up another octave. But all I did was just have this nice little bounce where I play like every other note as you can see here, just skipping a note, giving a nice little bit of rhythm. But I'm just playing it with the G's, and up here with this nice little A, then down here with this D and D sharp, and I believe it goes back up into the G, but as you can see a different octave, so making use of different octave changes, and back into the G again, and then all the way down into an A. But as you can see, it's just me playing with the octaves. And then all I did was copy and paste this pattern another 3 more times to make this 4-bar. Then I took it up a whole octave to make it a total of 8 bars. And the final thing I did, Alt R to bring up this nice velocity randomizer. And playing with this knob, it just randomizes the velocities, giving it a bit more of a human touch. So without further ado, this is what the Pluck counter melody sounds like. As for the effects, again got myself another EQ, ducking some highs and cutting my lows. Then I'm using some Soothe 2 just to act as a nice little compressor, getting all these harsh frequencies ducked. And then I'm wrapping it up with a nice little bit of a hollow vintage verb just to make it a bit more ambient to suit that future dark style. And then looking at the stereo separation, only around 27% it was done, just so I widen it a tiny bit, but it's also kind of like that main component. And now to wrap up the last part of the sample, I got myself a nice little Bulgarian solo R. This is a preset from the Ethno World 6 bank in Contact 7, but you can definitely use other choir samples through Reddit or through other plugins just like Expand 2 or Purity or even Omnisphere. But looking at the pattern, it is very straightforward. All I do is just follow this D into a D sharp, into a D, and then back up to the G, which is the root note. And as stated before, using notes to semitone apart gives it that dark sound. But then for the effects, I kept it very simple, using a kind of like a bandpass. Kind of using this bandpass narrow EQ, giving it a nice little kind of like a radio phone kind of sound, which goes really well with vocals. Then I use some Soothe 2 again to compress the harsher frequencies. And finally, I drown this sound in reverb, just because vocals sound so much more lush, full and dense when there's a lot of reverbs drowning them out. And for stereo separation, I did it around, where is that, 70%, widen it in your headphones, giving it a nice little background touch to the rest of the thing, so wrapping it up nicely in a bow. And before I play the final sample, just know I got a sound shifter, took this whole thing down 3 semitones, moving it from that G minor into an E minor, so now that is the scale we are working in. And with all that being said, this is what a Southside melody sounds like for a dark future beat. But now it's time to move to the drums, and just know all these sounds are from my drum kit, the Essential Kit, can be found on my Instagram, link below. First thing I've got is a nice little snare, repeating it every 4 bar, or should I say every bar. It's just really the simple pattern we all know and love. But then moving on to the hi-hats, we've got ourselves a nice little pattern, repeat every 4 bar. It is a bit of a crazy one, but let me just break it down. If we essentially just focus on this 2 bar first of all, what we've got is a nice little change in pitch, as you can see from going here to here. Then I add a nice little quarter step roll, which is by going onto your magnet tool, clicking quarter step, go into your paintbrush, click a note, and as you can see, you could just drag them in nicely. But then after this roll, I leave it normally, and then I add a nice little step roll down here. And then for the second bar over here, I take out the note in the center here and here, just giving it a bit of space. It makes it a much more, just giving it a bit of space, which gives it a lot, more bounce as well. But then I have a nice little roll pattern going up here and here with a nice little quarter step. But then for the second half of this 4 bar, it's essentially the same over here, but I just change it up a bit. So kept the same roll, but then instead of having this roll go over here, as you can see, I got myself a different kind of roll, which is the same as this quarter step over here. So just change the roll type really. Then I left that same space as we had over here, but the only variation I did was instead of keeping this roll down here, I took it down a whole octave, I believe, or a few semitones down, just down over here. And then all I did was copy and paste this to make a full 8 bar. So without further ado, this is what the hi-hat and the snare sound like. And there we have it, giving that nice kind of Southside drum bounce. But next up, guys, we've got ourselves the 808 pattern, and I am using the Spins 808. But one thing to note is I actually dug the sample down another semitone, so we're actually working in the scale of D sharp minor, and that's why the pattern is how it is. To break it down, it's pretty simple. Got ourselves a very nice spaced out 808 bounce at the beginning, exactly how Southside likes to do his bounces. But then we do the same thing again over here, but just finish it off with an extra note over here and these 2 notes just to give it a bit more of a bounce. But then for the second half of the 8 bar, I pretty much copy the same pattern, but then I change it up a bit with these notes over here, giving it a nice kind of finale for that 8 bar. And then looking at the kick pattern, it is very simple and straightforward, following the same 808 as before, but in the root note of C, I'm keeping it in. And then one thing I do to my 808 and my kick that I like to emphasize in every video is if I click Control A on my kick or my 808, I grab my mouse, hold that scroll wheel down and push it to the top. As you just seen, what it does is it maxes my velocities out, and the reason I do this is for 2 main things. One, it makes your 808 and your kicks much more punchier, and second of all, it sounds more appealing to artists trying to hop on your beats. So without further ado, this is what the 808 and the kicks sound like. And there we have it. super dope bounce, exactly what Future would hop on. But now it's time for the final part. And as you can see, we've got ourselves a nice little open hat pattern. Pretty simple again. All I do is place my main open hat over here, and then I add this extra note and duck it all the way down, just so is when the clap hits, that open hat cuts out completely, not playing again. And all I do is copy and paste this pattern for a full 8 bar. So now, without further ado, this is what a full beat by Southside for Future sounds like. And there we have it, but now it's time to walk you through the beat structure. The first thing to note about this beat structure, I have got myself pretty much the whole sample playing at the beginning, apart from that choir, but I have the snare, the hi-hats, and that kick coming in halfway through, alongside a nice little pitch and tempo bend, just to kind of build the pace up and give it that very nice kind of dark, aggressive vibe. But then coming into the chorus, first thing I do is just strip away all of the sample apart from that main ambient sound. Then I have all my essential drums playing that 808, that kick, that hi-hat and clap. But then for the second 8 bar in the chorus, I got myself the bell, wire sample coming in now, and that open hat just to add a bit of variation. And next up, we have got ourselves the verse section, which is 3 8 bars. First verse looking over here, got myself that, and looking at that first 8 bar, got myself that nice kind of like plucky counter melody with the main sample, alongside that 808, that snare, that hi-hat in it. But then coming into that second 8 bar, because it's so important, you want to build the energy up, we keep that kick in, we have a nice little bit of a rhythm play with the hi-hat, and then I have that bell coming in alongside that open hat just to really make it a bit more harder. And then for the final 8 bar, which is also known as the pre-chorus or the pre-hook, it's about building up that energy now just for when the chorus is about to hit. So I take away all the drums apart from that snare and kick that come halfway through, leaving myself with a nice little vocal pattern, a nice bell, the main sample and the bass playing, and then all I do is copy and paste the chorus not once but twice, and then last but not least, I copy and pasted the same verse section again. So guys, there you have it, a full breakdown on how Southside makes these dark beats for Future. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.